Today is January 15th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I'm an alcoholic and a friend here in the lifeboat of recovery. It is a thrill and a joy to be here with you today as we are journeying through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 and 12, one day at a time. So in the last chapter, the last episode, we finished up more about alcoholism, and then we began We Agnostics, which is chapter 4. We are also on our tail end of step 2 in the 12 and 12. Today, we're going to be reading We Agnostics, pages 47 through 51, and then we're going to be finishing up step 2, pages 31 through 33. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. I wonder what those simple steps are. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. To us, the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive, or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all. I just love that picture here, of this broad highway and that it's in the seeking, not the finding. So we're going to be building on that belief here on page 47. We're going to be reading again, pages 47 through 51. All right, let's get to the book. We needed to ask ourselves but one question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe, or is at least willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon the simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. That was great news to us, for we had assumed that we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, "I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him." So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. Besides, a seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even the casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced as long as some of us were. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided that they're firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at an incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there's an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have logical ideas of what life is all about. Actually, we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness, which we should have sought ourselves. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people, and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of a power which is greater than himself. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to, and believes in, a power greater than himself. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record. Here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, they show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. All right, that's a good stopping point for now on page 51. Let's dive into page 31 of the 12 and 12. Bottom of page 31. Now, let's take the guy full of faith, but still reeking of alcohol. He believes he's devout. His religious observance is scrupulous. He's sure that he still believes in God, but suspects that God doesn't believe in him. He takes pledges and more pledges. Following each, he not only drinks again, but acts worse than the last time. Valiantly, he tries to fight alcohol, imploring God's help, but the help doesn't come. What then can be the matter? The clergymen, doctors, friends, and families, the alcoholic who means well and tries hard is a heartbreaking riddle. But to most AAs, he is not. There are too many of us who've been just like him and have found the riddle's answer. The answer has to do with the quality of faith rather than its quantity. This has been our blind spot. We supposed we had humility when we really hadn't. We supposed we had been serious about religious practices when, upon honest appraisal, we found that we'd only been superficial. Or, going to the other extreme, we had wallowed in emotionalism and had mistaken it for true religious feeling. In both cases, we've been asking something for nothing. The fact was, we really hadn't cleaned house, so that the grace of God could enter us and expel the obsession. In no deep or meaningful sense we have ever taken stock of ourselves, made amends to those we had harmed, or freely given to any other human being without any demand for reward. We had not even prayed rightly. We had always said, "Grant me my wishes," instead of "Thy will be done." The love of God and man we understood not at all. Therefore, we remain self-deceived, and so incapable of receiving enough grace to restore us to sanity. Few indeed are the practicing alcoholics who have any idea how irrational they are, or, seeing their irrationality, can bear to face it. Some will be willing to term themselves problem drinkers, but cannot endure the suggestion that they are in fact mentally ill. They are abetted in this blindness by a world which does not understand the difference between the sane drinking and alcoholism. Sanity is defined as soundness of mind. Yet, no alcoholic, soberly analyzing his destructive behavior, whether the destruction fell on the dining room furniture or his own moral fiber, can claim soundness of mind for himself. Therefore, step 2 is the rallying point for all of us. Whether agnostic, atheist, or former believer, we can stand together on this step. True humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. And every AA meeting is an assurance that God will restore us to sanity if we rightly relate ourselves to Him. All right, guys. So it seems like these two readings today they kind of go hand in hand. They're very, very similar. One thing that keeps jumping out to me is removing old prejudices. And we've talked about that a few times already, just in this short amount of time in January. I've seen it so many times, and I've circled in the book so many times, these old ideas of God and these old prejudices we may have. And that has certainly helped me. And I can relate the 12 and 12 about the guy who prays. And this is before I cleaned house. I can say this, before sobriety, I would get on my knees and I would pray, God, I don't want to drink anymore. Help me. But I love what page 32 says. We supposed that we had had humility when we really hadn't. We supposed we had been serious about religious practices when, upon honest appraisal, we found that we'd only been superficial. And you know what? I was praying a lot of grant my wishes instead of thy will be done. That was me. And I didn't know that until I had to work some of these simple principles. And again, that worked for me. And as I always say, or I try to always say this, I am not a speaker on behalf of AA or affiliation or anything. I'm just a guy in recovery. And at least for me, the 12 steps truly saved my life and have given me a peace that truly passes all understanding, a peace I never had before sobriety. But I really had to clean house, and I have to continue to clean house every day. So I can completely relate to page 32, being on the other end. All right, guys, that's enough out of my rambling for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I cannot wait to see you back here tomorrow.